Good evening, everyone. It's 7 p.m., November 9th, 2023, and I'd like to welcome everyone in the room and those participating online as I call to order this meeting of the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Board of Education for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. We value everyone's input and have made sure to dedicate a portion of this meeting to hear from you. We look forward to your comments during that time as indicated on the agenda. With that, Mr. Lyman, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Carpenter?
Here.
Mr. Kinsey?
Present.
Mr. Price?
Here.
Mrs. Anderson?
Here.
Mrs. Dorn is absent.
Also, just wanted to take a second to note that Dr. Kozat is absent tonight. They had a death in their family, so he'll be spending time with them. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers go out to them at this time. So if you're able, will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Treasurer's report.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting held October 26th?
So moved.
Mrs. Anderson and then Mr. Price. Questions or corrections on the minutes? Please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Can I get a motion to approve the treasurer's report for the month of October?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Carpenter and then Mrs. Anderson.
The financial reports are on the website. They are on board docs. They are included with the agenda tonight. I want to spend the most of my time reviewing the forecast when we get to that one. Does anyone have any specific questions about any of the financial reports that were included?
Please call the roll.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
And Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Can I get a motion to approve the 5-year financial forecast as presented with the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Carpenter and Mrs. Anderson.
Check. So the 5-year forecast is a required document that we have to file twice a year. May 31st, the original is November 30th, this one, and then we have an update to this that's required by May 31st. It's a general fund only, so this document does not include student activities, sports, federal grants, or lunchroom or anything like that. It's just general fund information. It's a planning document. The 3 columns on the left are actual, so the last 3 years, those are actual figures. And on the right, the 5 are projections. Actually, the first of the 5 on the right is half actual, half projection, because we're about halfway through the school year. Just a couple of things I wanted to hit and highlight about this, and then there are about 2 or 3 things I think we all need to take from this document. First of all, the first row is for real estate tax revenues. And if you can read those numbers, you can tell that by far the majority of the funding of the school district comes from local property taxes. Probably about 70%, 68 to 70% of our funding comes from that one item. I have built into that row of projection only a 1% increase each year, except for the year of reappraisal, which was this year. This year and next year, it spills over. Those two have additional receipts and revenues in those cells due to the reappraisal of property by the county auditor's office.
Can we just talk a little bit about that? Because I think the community is pretty largely troubled by the revaluation. And a lot of people saw 25 or 30% increases in their property value. And so it's very important to realize it doesn't mean the school gets 25 or 30% more from the community. It gets really complicated, but the short of it is any new construction, then we get funding from that, which makes sense. New houses, new kids, et cetera. So that's new revenue to the district. Also, somebody does a massive expansion of their home or whatever, there's that. But otherwise, there's not a tying in of what the school gets from increase in property taxes, with one exception. This is where it gets complicated. You have outside millage and inside millage. And 4.5 mils, right, of the 10 mils is inside millage, and it is adjusted as property values go up, or if they were to go down, it fluctuates with that. And so that's roughly 12% of our overall budget, if I remember right, thereabouts.
That's about right.
At some point it was. So roughly 12% of our budget is affected by the property valuation. So we're not going to get a whole bunch of money by any means from the revaluation that happened. What it essentially does during revaluation is essentially, if you forget the new construction, it's a re-leveling of who pays what. Let's just make up a number here. Say the whole county or whole township and whatnot, and county collects $50 million. I don't know if that's what was, let's just say it is. At the end of the day, if you take new construction out of it, you're going to get $50 million. It doesn't go up with the property valuation. What happens is what individual houses pay within that, it goes up and down based upon how their property value changed relative to other homes during that period of time. The only new money that comes in on the outside or voted millage is from new construction. So the inside millage, it is effective. Outside millage, which is the 88% of the money that we get from the community, is unaffected in terms of new money, with the exception of new construction. So it gets really complicated, really confusing, and there'll be a multiple choice test after this. So see if somebody can understand. But it's really challenging to understand. But I just want most of the community to understand it's not like all of a sudden the schools are getting 25% more money if your house went up by 25%. Because your taxes will not go up 25% either, just because your property value went up by 25%. It's 35% of your overall value, and how much of it's inside, outside, how does your property get affected. If you really want to know, the best thing you can do is go off to the Green County Auditor's site, and on their homepage there, they've got a tool there where you can input what your property valuation change was, and you can see what the change in your property taxes will be for the upcoming year. The big thing, I guess, mostly is a complicated discussion. Please understand, the school district isn't getting 25% more money just because your property valuation went up by 25%. It's complicated.
So really important information, and everybody under the age of 20 thinks you're really exciting right now. I can tell. What do you think?
No, I failed it. I didn't.
So the other item then is the state funding, and that's the next row. And on that row, we projected a freeze all the way out. Over the years, state funding goes up and down, but it pretty much is level in this district because there isn't a big push at the state level to fund a district with demographics like ours, with average income, average property values. So we tend to get no increase from state infinitely, it seems like. So that's what I built in there. I try to be a little conservative on this, by the way. I don't want to show money that you project that you don't even come close to receiving. If we drop down to the expenditures, which would be the rows that begin with the number 3, the first one there is personal services. That's the salaries of all of our employees. We have approximately 302 employees in the school district. That's a head count, so a lot of those are part-time people. But the larger increases this year and next year are due to the fact that, we talked about this a lot, the ESSER federal grants that were given to us during COVID had one large one drops off this year, the other drops off next year. So we pick up all the salaries to reduce class sizes that they're mainly for teachers to reduce class sizes and for special needs teacher assistants in classrooms. Those all will be paid out of general funds, so that will come out of this money when those federal grants drop off. Going forward, by the way, the assumptions are attached. If you want to get into details, you want to know a really good description of each line item, you need to read the assumptions. I'm just trying to hit some highlights. I've projected a 10% increase each year in purchase services. Purchase services is kind of the catch-all that is not salaries or benefits or equipment or supplies. It involves items like utilities, fuel, building repairs, legal fees, professional meetings, community school costs. If we have to purchase bus drivers or special ed teacher assistants from a company as a purchase service, that would fall in here. And then the largest one is all the services that we pay for at the Greene County Education Service Center. So those are projected to go up 10% a year. That might be a little high, but it seems to be about what has happened over the last 10 years or so. It's been some big jumps there. And 5% increase in supplies, row 3.04. Bottom line, and the most important thing to take out of this, or a couple things, row 6.01, if we were a business, we'd call that our profit and loss row. So if you want to know how we compare each year, revenues compared to expenditures, the 3 actual years, we were well into the positive each year. We continue to be this year and next, and then the last 3 years of that row 6.01, we go into the red and we are spending more than we are receiving or deficit spending in those years. Deficit just being that we're spending more than we're receiving, not deficit that we're spending more than we have. That's a big difference. So the bottom line is row 7.02, the cash balance June 30th, that's the last day of our fiscal year. And you can follow that number across and see that for all 5 years, this is important, all 5 years of the financial forecast, we are solid financially, and I foresee no fiscal problems during the period of the entire forecast. So, any questions about any of this? Or a lot of lines I didn't hit.
A couple more comments here. So if we look at line 4.5 for fiscal year 23, it's like a overall expenditures are like $30.6 million, correct?
Right.
So just to put that in perspective, when you go back and look at what we get from the state, it's about $6 million. So roughly, we're getting about 20% of our funding from the state, and the rest of it's coming from local and federal. And obviously, the predominance of that's coming from local, and hence the property taxes that are exorbitant here. And that's, again, it's not our creation, it's what the state of Ohio has levied on us, so to speak, because they assess us to be an affluent district, and not everybody is. We have a lot of people on fixed income, a lot of retirees, and it's a problem. And so we're sitting well for the next several years, but if you look, and if you're not colorblind, you can see far enough out there to the right, we're going to start seeing some red, where we're basically spending more money than we're taking in. And I assume, Kevin, somewhere there, that's where the levy drops off, right? The emergency levy, it was a 7-year levy, and that drops off in
28.
Yeah. So that's on the edge of what we're seeing here. And so then you can see that, we start getting, so we start, so we're like in 27, we have $16.8 million, and then next year we set 12.2, and that's line 7.02, right?
Right.
So in that 1 year, we essentially lose $4 million, and it's about 3.2 we're getting from that particular levy. So,
As I said, it's important to note too, I don't mention this very much because it's not general fund money, but in 2004, I believe, we passed a bond issue to build this building and to add on to the high school and Stephen Bell, renovate those. That was like a 40 point something million bond issue. And so we still have about half of that, about 20 million that we still owe. So when we look at the balance of the general fund, we have to keep in mind the debt is still there too, with paying each year principal and interest. But that's collected by the county auditor and not something that we have to worry about.
So just a discussion here real quickly. And kiddos, we're sorry, but we got to talk about some of this, what we're here for, and I do some board business. I think in the upcoming year, it's not too early for us to formulate a committee looking at how long-term we can have more stable and adjusted funding rather than relying on levies every 3 to 5 years or whatever, because it's obviously the last one was a very contentious thing for our community, and we need to find an alternative. And And so I'm not going to try to pretend I know what that is here. I think what should happen, in my opinion, is I believe we should have a committee gets together. We have people in there like retirees, local business people that are smart, in that realm. Probably even anybody has any legal expertise, because we're going to have to probably deal with the state. In an ideal world, since we pay a lot of income taxes out of this district, the state would return some of those income taxes to us to fund our schools. I think that's the most elegant, least painful way, for us to get funding for our district. I don't even like the thought, even property tax-based levy again. So let's get creative. And again, I'm not smart in all those areas at all. So, but I think we need to get started. It's going to be a multi-year effort to try to. We're probably going to have to try to persuade our legislators that they need to look at not districts just like us, but look at Centerville. Centerville's levy just failed, I believe. Bellbrook-Sugarcreek is faced the same. These affluent, quote unquote, affluent districts where we've got close to the base, we have a good level of pay and higher quality homes. But again, put stop here. Not everybody, is affluent in a really nice $500,000 home, and so. We need to do something, and it's not too early to start in January. We've got a few years, but it's going to be a few years to come up with a solution. So,
We need to be proactive rather than reactive.
One of our district goals is to form a financial advisory committee and do much of what we said earlier, discussing.
you guys forgot.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. The district goal for forming a committee, also new district goal for, what was it, the 20%? I call it the canary in the coal mine. I don't know what, there's some fancy financial term, I'm sure, for keeping an eye on that cash balance and making sure that we're being proactive, we're looking ahead, that we're not going to get into a danger zone, because we're on very good footing for now, as planned. It probably doesn't get said often enough. The community asked in an emergency levy for 7 years of funding. We've been saying that needs to last at least 7 years. If that lasts any less than 7 years, that's a major failure. So it needs to last at least 7 years. So yeah, we can never start too early, and let's do it while we're on solid ground and explore some options.
So as we formulate that committee, I really would like to see it be a demographic across our community. So get some of these retirees to come in and just listen to them, and they might have some really creative solutions we haven't thought of. Business people, legal. We have some lawyers in the community like to donate their time. We need that. No one person is going to come up with the solution to this.
And I just have two questions. Dare I ask what percentage you use to account for inflation? Do I want to know?
Well,
Do I not?
I used a different percentage for each line.
Okay.
Because
But that was definitely taken into account,
Yes,
more larger
yes.
than you normally would.
that's 10% for purchase services,
Okay. It's pretty
5 for supplies.
Okay. And then what is a good, the cash balance, what is it that, you've been doing this a long time, so what are you comfortable, not saying you're old, but what are you comfortable in? Are you still comfortable with what you're seeing?
Yes, I'm very comfortable listening.
Okay.
And I also agree with what Mike was talking about. One of our financial goals is going to be to keep a balance of 20% of our annual revenue. Because in this district, for many years, because of the way the state funds the schools,
Right.
you get a levy passed, and then you spend the money down to where you're in trouble, and then you pass another. It's like there's no leveling off. It's almost impossible to run a school district with the way the state funds. So,
Thank you.
So I think that canary in the coal mine will serve us and the community very well to be looking ahead and looking for that.
I think that's all I've got on that. Unless you have any more questions.
Okay, it has been moved by, Mr. Carpenter and duly seconded by Mrs. Anderson to approve the 5-year financial forecast. Mr. Lyman, please call the roll.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
And the last one I have, if I get a motion to approve a new student activity account requested by the high school, it would be High School Boys Club Volleyball.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Carpenter and then Mrs. Anderson. Questions? pretty cool getting something new. I think it's exciting. I had a few parents reach out and say that that's great to have a new opportunity. So. All right, please call the roll.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes.
Anything else, sir?
No.
All right, does anybody have any correspondence for the good of the board? Moving on, favorite thing we ever get to do. Good news recognition. Pardon me while I let myself get out. We're going to call up a bunch of names. Maybe if you wouldn't mind just staying up front, maybe we can have a round of applause for everybody once everybody here is recognized. But I'm going to go a little bit out of order, if there even is an order. And first we're going to recognize these are individuals who received a perfect score on the Ohio State test. If that sounds impressive, because it really, really, really is, not only is grading these tests very complicated with lots of variables, and we had many, many students who truly excelled and did great. The names that I'm going to read here, the tests were very carefully researched and went one by one, and truly every single student here got all of the questions correct. It's unbelievable. So I am going to go a little bit out of order, and you're going to hear why in a second. And welcome Jayla Schofield. So Ms. Schofield received a perfect score on grade 8 mathematics test. And I want you to let everybody know why you're going first here. What else are you doing tonight?
So tonight I am participating in Matilda, and we are doing, this is our first opening night of the show, and we would appreciate if anyone would want to come. Cast and crew would all appreciate it. We have a show tomorrow at 7, and Saturday we have a show at 7 and 2.
Thank you. Good job. All right, up next, Zoe Neff. Congratulations, great job. Miss Neff received a perfect score on the 3rd grade mathematics test. Evan Lasso. Over here. Mr. Lasso received a perfect score also on the 3rd grade mathematics test. Rebecca Lee. Over here. Miss Lee received a perfect score on the 3rd grade English language arts test. This is fantastic to run out of room for this. Charlotte Kinsey. Miss Kinsey received a perfect score on the 3rd grade English language arts test. And Madeline Pelly. Congratulations. So Miss Pelly not only received a perfect score on the 3rd grade math test, but also a perfect score on the 3rd grade English language arts test. Seth Johnson. Congratulations, Seth. Mr. Johnson received a perfect score on the 4th grade English language arts test. Jonathan Burke. Congratulations. Mr. Burke received a perfect score on the 4th grade English language arts test. Dora Adebisi. Ms. Adebisi received a perfect score on the 5th grade English language arts test. How about we start coming down here again? All right. Do you folks mind maybe going down that way a little bit? Maybe we can shift down that way? I think you figure it out. I'd just like to welcome Clara Rickman. Congratulations. Ms. Rickman got a perfect score on the 5th grade English language arts test. Peyton Burns. Congratulations. Ms. Burns received a perfect score on the 7th grade English language arts test. Kevin Lee. Is Kevin with us? Okay, let's give Kevin a round of applause. He received a perfect score on the 8th grade math test. And James Soul. Jimmy, all right. Mr. Soul received a perfect score on the Algebra 1 exam. And Chase Antle, and I think he may be ill and is unable to attend. Okay. Give him a round of applause. Perfect score also on the Algebra 1 exam. And Tommy Dickman. Mr. Dickman with us? So Mr. Dickman received a perfect score on the American history exam. Let's give everybody a round of applause. Thank you very much, everybody. Well done. Congratulations. All right. And now we would like to honor and welcome Allison High. So Miss High was a state qualifier in cross country.
I just want to thank my coaches and my teammates for encouraging me and supporting me and pushing me to become a better runner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know, any adults, if you want to step forward and put money down how you do on some of those state tests, I don't think I'd want to. So that concludes our good news recognition. Everybody's, of course, welcome to hang out for more very exciting talk, but we totally get it. If you have other places to be, it's fine if you want to leave now. But we thank you very much for being here, and thank you for the support of your students. All right, let's move into reports to the board. I'd like to welcome Mrs. Sigmund. Thank you very much for being here.
Know how to clear a room.
All right.
I'll let him get the agenda. Facilities maintenance. I promise I'll be done in 2 hours. Okay.
You will be, for sure.
Go to the next one. Okay. First of all, I'm just giving you a little update of things we've done this year, in the past year with facilities, and a little bit how it all rolls with respect to maintenance and so on. If we could go to the next slide. I think this is very important to note. These are the years our buildings were built and when additions were done and the ages of them. I mean, the new middle school is 17 years old. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but I know my daughter was in 7th grade when we opened it. She's an 8th year teacher, so that tells you something. And the other things we call the new high school is 27 years old. So these buildings, you know, when you're looking at a building that's 98 years old that we still use for the ESC, and we rent out, and then you got like the building where preschool is 56 years old, Bell Creek 62 years old. We have aging facilities, and so that requires a lot of maintenance and upkeep. The next one. Besides your school buildings, though, There's a lot of other things this district maintains. We have the stadium area, which is locker rooms, the pole barn, the bleachers, the concession stands, the turf, the track. You have the baseball fields here at the middle school and at the high school, and the softball fields. You have all those practice fields. They're just north of the high school building, plus there's practice fields behind this building. The cross-country course, which is going to need some help this year because they changed the rules. You now can't run through water on the cross-country course. Our course crosses a creek 7 times. So we're going to have to make some changes on that. All the other green spaces, there's 70-some acres just on this property that we have to mow and maintain. Parking lots and sidewalks. The playgrounds, and here's a big one that I never thought about till this year when we got hit with a big repair. There's a fiber optic line that runs from here downtown to Stephen Bell, and we had a squirrel chew through the line numerous times, and then we had to go through people's private properties. These aren't on public easement properties, and clear trees out and everything, so these squirrels would quit chewing our lines because when they went down, we didn't have internet at Stephen Bell. So those are all the things that are maintained by our district. So we go on. We also have 3 groups that have an actual lease with us. We have the Bellbrook Bible Church, which leases the bottom floor of this 3-story building, that 98-year-old building. They have that whole bottom floor of that building. We have Crossroads Church that will be here at least through this year. They rent out this building. If you've ever been up here on a Sunday, this building doesn't look like it does. They totally transform a lot of areas. They bring in a team on Saturday and transfer everything over to make it look like a church. We also have the Family Resource Center, which rents the 2nd floor of the old Sugar Creek Elementary building, and then they have a few classrooms on the 3rd floor. Those are our leases, but we also have groups that use our facilities 7 days a week. We Eagles are in here, Bellbrook Lions Club, Scout Troops, neighborhood associations might have their homeowners meetings here. We have dance studios, rent out our auditoriums. We have all sorts of groups that regularly use our facilities. Here is our big maintenance staff. We have 3 people full-time that maintain all those areas I just talked about. And then we have Ron Tyree who mows. We had, at one point, 3 other employees. Unfortunately, one's moved away and the other 2 passed away. We had a part-time employee that did a lot of our electrical work. We had a part-time employee that did a lot of our plumbing work. And then we had a part-time employee that managed looking at all our HVAC stuff on a regular basis. Those people are no longer with us. During the cut modes, those got cut as people retired and we didn't fill them. We need to start looking at that. So I'm just going to, on a budget, we got to start looking at some of that. These 3 guys work all the time, just managing our HVAC system. Tom Fryman, who's our supervisor, it's a big job monitoring on the computer, everything, because I would say daily something's going down in our district that we have to figure out, is that something we can fix or do we need to bring in our HVAC company to repair that? Okay. So I'm not going to read this to you, but those are the things our district maintenance staff does. There's a leak, there's maybe the roof has a leak on it, or something needs fixed. You'll see some additions they've done, minor carpentry type things. Just anything. We call them, they get work orders on a daily basis. We do have outside contractors for things like they refinish our gym floors every summer, all our fire systems, our HVAC. But again, our HVAC company, someone has to call them and tell them what the problem is and where it is. They monitor our systems too, but Tom Fryman is on that computer 7 days a week looking at the HVAC stuff. But I'm not going to read it to you, but you can see we do have outside contractors along with our district maintenance staff. These are some updates that we've had in the last year. This is Bell Creek's office. Because of hiring Zach Klein as the assistant principal, there used to be a secretary where that purple is on the wall on the left-hand side on the TV screen. That was an opening. That was a window pass through, and there was no door there. So we had to close that wall, and our maintenance staff did this and find the door that used to be there, get that on. We also put in all new flooring in the office suite at Bell Creek and new furniture because we had to move those secretaries out into that general area. And that required our maintenance staff to demo the old counter that was there, and then we had to get the flooring in, and then we had the company come in and install the new furniture. But other little things that people don't think about with maintenance and facilities, I know Matt DeLong, our technology director, literally pulled an all-nighter. He was up all night in that office getting the wiring set up so the first day of school, the secretary's computers would work. So it's those little things that people don't think about that we're extremely understaffed with respect to. You can go to the next one, please. Also at Bell Creek, we've, sorry, go back. There we go. We replace flooring in classrooms. We kind of do a schedule, try to do a few classrooms every year. That's the boys' bathroom. We replace the flooring in there. And then we just installed 10 windows so far in that building where the frames have been rotting out. They're wood frames and they needed replaced. So we've done 10 so far, and that'll be rotating through his budget, allows us to replace those windows. At Stephen Bell, you can see the playground. If you look at the picture on the left, there's a curb that we had installed, and then the concrete with the drain there. That was not there before, so every time we had a major rainstorm, all the mulch washed off the playground and went out into the retention pond. So we called it, actually, a Bellbrook grad came up and assessed the situation, and he did that work for us. On the right, our kindergarten cubbies. We added another section of all day, everyday kindergarten, so kids couldn't share those cubbies, like when we have the alternating days, so we had to install a whole other set of cubbies. That on the left is a picture of the drive from the transportation center out to the St. Pierre Education Center. Those trees on the right, we had to clear all that out and bring them up because they were scraping our buses every day when they would drive down that line, so we had to trim those trees up. You can also see some new asphalt on that drive, and in the picture on the right, there's some new asphalt there as well. We try to do so much asphalt every year. We bring them out, they look at areas that are most cracked or dangerous, we repair those sections. And then, of course, you know about our security upgrades. The bottom picture is the night locks, our maintenance departments. We've hired someone to come in and start installing those at every classroom. And one that you probably not have thought of, that antenna on the right is on Carpenter Road. That's where our bus radios are connected, is on that tower. So that's something else we have to deal with. We did some concrete work. This is outside the athletic entrance at the high school. And then the picture on the right is the playground that goes for the preschool. They acquired a lot of playground equipment through grant money during the COVID times. But unfortunately, that area was asphalt. So we had to bring in someone to remove all the asphalt. Now we're trying to get the ground level, and then we'll have to put mulch down. And also, our maintenance department gets to put all that equipment together and get it installed. And one of our maintenance guys, Ray Watts, is trained on playground safety and how to monitor all our equipment. Coming soon, it's ordered. I thought it was going to be installed last Friday. Stephen Bell has no signage. And so we're going to get the word Stephen Bell Elementary on that part where it is right now. That's just a Photoshop of it right now. And then we're putting a sign on Shadowleaf Drive so people can see that there's actually school there. And because it's kind of hidden there. Okay. Other things we've done, it's not exciting pictures, is radon remediation at this 98-year-old building downtown. We've done some door replacements. We've done 3M film in all the vestibules, tuck pointing at the high school and the bricks there, and then of course you know about the school zone flashers at the middle school.
I don't know what tuck pointing is.
It's like where the brick, they have to repair in between the bricks. And there's seams that, I'm learning this because I brought out an architect to look at our high school. They have seams that, so when the weather, it contracts and expands, and then they gradually get tighter, so we have to replace that elasticity part of it so they can still expand and contract. Because that curved hallway at the high school was a pretty idea, but it's not very easy to maintain. Big ones we have to do this summer is the new turf out the stadium. Our field is the oldest artificial turf field in the area. We were one of the first ones to get installed, and thanks to great maintenance, it's outlived its typical lifespan by many, many years, but we've got to get that replaced this year. And while we're doing that, we'll do new surface on the track. I get the pleasure of doing a 7-year facility plan. We're going to get a committee together, as you know, as part of the district goals. I'm getting that committee organized right now. That'll be representative of community groups. We have a Bellbrook City Council member, a Lions Club member, staff members from each building, parents, athletics, fine arts, and I would like a board member to sit on that as well. So you can pick amongst yourself who wants to do this, attend this meetings. I promise you, I'm going to try to only read 4 nightly meetings. That's it, total. And in between with some homework to do in between. And we'll get this plan in place. So any questions on facilities, maintenance? See, I'm way under my 2 hours. All right, let's get to transportation.
I do have one
Yeah.
more question, just on the Stephen Bell
Mhm.
sign. Is the official address now changed to Shadow Lee?
Yes, I did that last year.
Oh, okay.
It was alarmingly easy to do. I was surprised how easy I was able to do that. But yes, it's officially changed. So on our state records, everything through ODE and so on. So if someone Googles it, eventually they should start always get the Shadow Leaf address. And we want people banging on the back of the building trying to get in on grandparents' lunch day or whatever. Okay, I just want to give you a little update on what's going on in the transportation world. We, as you know, we have 4 different tiers, actually 3 time tiers because Stephen Bell High School are approximately the same times. But our kids, the middle school kids, are only on the middle school with other middle school kids on the bus, high school kids only with high school kids, and so on. If you were on the board, maybe 4 years ago, I did a transportation fleet replacement plan. At that time, we had 19 bus routes or buses that we were running every day. Well, we added busing back since then, because that was during the cut time. We've added high school busing back, we shrunk the area, and we had to, by having the 3 tiers, shorten routes. So now, you see that Bellbrook High School and Stephen Bell, there's 26 to 27 buses running out on the road at the same time every day. That's 8 more buses than we were running 4 years ago when I did that fleet replacement plan. Okay. More to come on that later. We also have what you don't realize, and there's the number of riders on the thing. Our ridership is up on all the tiers. We had 7 buses at the high school last year. This year we're running 13. Double it, more than double it. I think because our routes are shorter, the parents are like, you can get on the bus. It's only 20 minutes now. It wasn't, like I know in my neighborhood, I used to see the middle school bus go through at 6:30 in the morning. Now it's going through a little before 7, and that's even though we moved the start time up 10 minutes, but the rest routes are shorter. We also, though, what people don't realize is that we have to provide transportation to Incarnation. We have a busload of students we take every day to Incarnation. We have a busload of students we take to the Greene County Career Center every day. And then we have students that we're taking to the Greene County Learning Academy downtown. We have a van that goes to the Greene County Career Center with a special needs student, and also to Yellow Springs at the Learning Center there. And then we have a van that goes to Ohio School for the Blind in Columbus every Monday and Friday to take students and pick up. We have 2 students that go there. The other thing we have to do on transportation, and the general public probably doesn't understand that, is like if we have a homeless student who's displaced out of the district, we have to provide transportation for them. So like I have a van right now going over 20 miles from here in Dayton to pick up a student every day to bring him to school and take him home. If a student is placed in foster care, we try to keep them in the same school district, so we have to provide transportation. Last year, we were picking up 2 kids from off 275 down near Cincinnati every day and bringing them back and forth. And then we have kids we're taking to a special situation in the school right now where they're temporarily placed in a different setting, and we provide transportation for them. Our transportation coordinator has a big job, Lori Smith, organizing that. Because I called her one day with 3 situations within 15 minutes. And guess what? We have a foster kid, we have a homeless kid, and we have a kid's going in another alternate setting. And she had to figure out transportation for 3 people right away with vans. So let's scroll on up to the next one there.
That's real quick on that.
Yeah.
One of the things that some of the input we've heard here, public comment, and I think some of the correspondence we've had as well, is an interest in starting our high school later, or especially our middle school later, because the teenage, some studies seem to reflect that it's better for them. They need more sleep as they get older in that age frame. But it's a very complicated.
Extremely.
It's a house of cards, right? And so the fact it's telling we have to provide bus service to other other facilities like Greene County Career Center. So if we are going to try to stay with our same level of buses, I guess essentially have to get these other schools to change their schedules for us to change our schedule.
Well, like the Career Center moved their time up by 10 minutes, and that really messed with our system there. So we have kids now that ride with the middle school kids in the morning, and we take them to the Career Center, and in the afternoon, we can't get the bus back in time for the middle school kids, so we have to have them then sit at the high school for half an hour till high school dismisses, and then we take them home from high school. So,
But, you know, when we were starting to bring back busing, 2 years ago, you know, I was just passionate about getting busing back. I real quickly said, I can't figure it out. I mean, because it was just like, it's not my job to figure it out as a board member, but it was like, we changed the slightest thing and it ripple effects through everything. And so Lori, I commend her, she is one sharp lady, but she's got a team as well, right?
absolutely, but yeah. And then let's throw in, oh, by the way, we're gonna put in a bridge and take you down to single lane, right when school starts. I think next week, we're gonna be back to that, and so we'll be changing some bus routes again.
So just like for our community to understand, it's just not that simple. It's
No.
just slide to high school, whatever that we work in middle school, 45 minutes or an hour later. It's just.
And the other thing is you look at is it dark when you have young children waiting on buses in the morning? Who do you want waiting in the dark bus stop, a 17-year-old or a 5-year-old? So it's things you got to look at that too with the time changes.
Well, I know it's tough to do from the table, because obviously we welcome all input. It's great when people come and you know, have the desire to say have the middle school start later. It's hard to say from the table because we want to hear all the input. But I know one-on-one I point out, and I have no idea which meeting it is right now, but I know Lori came 2 meetings in a row and gave excellent presentations with all of the variables. And these are the 9 different combinations we looked at, and this is the only one that could work because of the Career Center. And I try to encourage people to go and watch that and those presentations, because I know I found it completely helpful, and just being like, okay, you're the expert. Yeah. Whatever you think is best is best.
You can do things like that in a district where everybody walks to school. For example, like in Oakwood, where you don't have bus runs. You know, everybody walks to school at the same time, but it's totally different when you're running bus routes in rural areas as well. But here's the interesting thing now. We have a total inventory of 30 buses. We have 27 out every day on routes. Last week, we had a day where we had 3 buses in the garage. So we were a little panicked. We had every bus we own out that was in operation out on the road, just hoping we would not have a breakdown for the next morning, our bus not start, because then we didn't know how we were going to do this. We were going to have kids, you know, a bus do a route and go out and pick up kids late and do a second run, what have you. But the other thing is, again, taking back when I did that fleet replacement 4 years ago and thought we had 19 routes, because we now have 27 out, we are running 16-year-old buses every day. Those were all going to be gone by now. We were not going to be using them. Those were going to be our sub buses. But because we've added all those routes, we have 6 routed buses that were purchased in 2008. We have 1 routed bus with a handicap bus was purchased in 2007. You guys voted to get that replaced at the last board meeting, so we're waiting for that to come in. That will then give us a sub bus, because right now we don't have a sub handicap bus. The two of the sub buses that we have are 16 years old as well. Mark Linkhart, our mechanic, and TJ Lawson, our assistant mechanic, they're awesome. They can get everything running and keep it running, but they can't do framing. The frames of the buses, which salt on the road causes buses to rust, and eventually they're going to deteriorate and not be safe on the road. All of ours passed inspection this year. We have all our buses are safe, but you are going to have to really look at making some bus purchases soon. It's different than what was on the original plan that presented to you, because we have 8 buses that are 16 years old. 6 are used daily. So there's my little handout, letting you know that we're going to have to think about this. Okay, we can go on. And here's a whole nother part you don't realize in our transportation department. We have 5 trucks. Note that 3 of those, the years on those, one is 22 years old. 2 of them are 19 years old. We use those primarily just for plowing parking lots, although one of our maintenance guys drives the 2004 truck to go to the different areas to mow. It's rusted, the top's hanging down, it's in really bad shape. And then we have both the 2004s are driven by maintenance workers, the part-time one and one are full-time, and then we bought a truck this past year, 2022. We have the 4 vans and the minibus that we use, as I was explaining all those routes we do, and then those are also used for our field trips, athletic events, and so on. And you can see one of those vans, 2004, that's going to need to be replaced at some time in the near future as well. And then we have some trucks up the side, like the box truck, the van. Look at the age of the van semi cab. 1993 is when that was bought. So, still running now, great, but we have to think of all those things as well. As of this week, hopefully I haven't checked with Lori today, but we had a bus driver who was taking her test, so we will have exactly 29 drivers running those 29 buses. Up until this week, we were short a driver, and so the transportation department was taking turns covering the routes. Danielle, Lori, Mark, TJ, which is tough because when they're out on a bus, they're not in there answering the phone calls and dealing with the issues on the radios. Doug and I both covered radios in mornings when everybody was out. We were short drivers and everybody was driving a bus, and so I'm down there trying to figure it out. It's first day of kindergarten, by the way, and it was raining that day. That was really fun. And there was raining with tree limbs down, and we had to change routes. So I really appreciate what they do down there. We do have one driver in training that should be passed in, so that will give us one sub. So as long as no more than one driver calls in sick or gets injured, we're going to be good. Any more than one, and that's when then the transportation coordinator, assistant, and so on are driving the buses. We have routed van drivers that run routes every day, and then the 3 other van drivers are doing all those hit or miss things like a foster child or a homeless child or whatever on those, depending on the circumstances. Okay, I think that's it, everything on the transportation. Oh no, this is a biggie. We purchased new software last year called TransFinder. We before had used VersaTrans. We've been running them simultaneously this year as we are routing. You don't want to do all new routing on new software that you've never done. And as we all know from the surveys, transportation had a very smooth start considering we had a bridge out and all those things. But we're about ready to totally switch over to TransFinder and turn off VersaTrans. What that means to our community is there's an app that parents will be able to load, and it'll give them, we can put information specific to their child's bus. They can't track buses, that's not safe, but we can say bus 13 had a breakdown, we're sending out a sub bus to pick up the students. Everybody who rides bus 13, their parents will get a notification on the app that we're running late for whatever reason. That is going to be really nice. And then all the routing information, all that type of thing. If we have to change their bus times, it'll all just be done through that app. So that should be switching over by Christmas break. So, and that's it on that department. Any questions? So, in summary, we really got to think about buses, we got to think about vans, we got to think about truck, and we got to think about maintenance. So that's my little spiel there on that 5-year forecast that Kevin's talking about. I'm on his financial committee as well, so I know that. I know I'm looking on both sides of this, but it's not buses are not something that's fun and pretty and exciting to talk about versus like a new auditorium or whatever, but it's things we are going to have to look into.
Does this still take 18 months from the time you order a bus to get it in unless Mark has a connection with somebody?
Typically, yes. And they're projecting to go up about $20,000 a year of the price. We do know of a bus order that was canceled, and there are some buses available right now we can get in there and grab, but typically they're telling us it's going to be 18 months on an order. Vans are the same way. Vans are a little better right now. But it took us a year to find the truck last year for Tom to find out.
The only reason to delay, simply because we might go, to ask one question, because we might go find a grant or matching funds. If not, I don't see why, if some are coming available, because other orders are canceled in other districts, we got to get them sooner or later, rather than wait to go up $20,000 a year or get a shortage and have to wait a year and have to get one. I know it's a big expense, but this is just like,
we definitely get our bang for the buck when we're driving 8 16-year-old buses. We have a top-notch department to keep them running. Yes, and things like we try to do is preserve miles. I try to do routing, so if one bus is on a high mileage route this year, next year we'll put it on a low mileage route and rotate them. That idea to preserve them as well. Our transportation center doesn't have a truck or bus wash in it where you can spray out the buses every day after you bring them in after being on the salt roads with salt on it, and so that wear and tear on your buses.
so yes, just discussion here. How should we go about getting recommendations for how many new buses to buy and when? So is that something you would work with Lori and
Yes.
go back and say we would recommend we buy X number of buses in this time frame?
Because the one thing you want to try to avoid too, Kevin and I talk about this, is buying 10 buses at once. because they all need replaced at the same time. It's nice when we can stagger them. And that's when I did that fleet replacement plan a few years ago, I was buying a few buses every year. And so by now, all the buses on our road were 10 years or less. But we added a bunch of routes. So that's why we've got 16-year-old buses on the routes. So other than these 8 buses that were built in 2008 or 2007, we're in pretty good shape. So we just got to get those maybe within the 2 years, some this year and some next year, get those off the road.
So you gonna come back, or Lori will come back sometime the next 2 or 3 meetings and say this is what's recommended?
I would imagine that goes through a recommendation through
Yeah,
Dr.
it would just be
Kozak and
yeah,
shows up the agenda. And we may remember, we have moved up a couple bus purchases recently. I don't know,
right,
6
they
months
were
ago.
in the plan.
Something like
Yeah.
you said is like, hey, something popped up, and if we get it now, we'll save $80,000. And Mr. Liming said, we were planning to buy it anyway 4 months from now.
Right.
We're like, okay, let's do it now and save the 80 grand or whatever it was.
And by this handicap bus that we just approved put us on schedule with what my original fleet replacement. We were 1 bus less than what I wanted to purchase at this point, and that put us right exactly what our replacement plan was. But things have changed because we've had more kids riding buses, which is good because if you're out here looking at traffic, it's so much better now at all the buildings now. We have more kids riding buses, less parents driving kids to school. We all know that's safer in a lot of ways, and we don't have the cars backed up on the road like we used to. So.
It's unbelievable how awesome our transportation department does. We all know buses everywhere is a problem, bus drivers everywhere is a problem. I follow a lot of different districts on social media and whatnot, and I'm not going to call anybody out, but I'll see, I wake up at 5:30 in the morning and I see a Facebook post from another district. Oh, by the way, bus route 13, 17, 19 isn't running today.
Yeah.
And we never had to do that to my knowledge.
Well,
Never.
we're very lucky that we have a department that's rolling up their sleeves saying, all right, I'll go drive this bus, and I'll go drive this bus. And, we have Belinda Frieden who she'll hop on a bus too, even though she's working down the office and has been working for us for 50 years. She will go out and drive a bus. So we're very fortunate with people who are willing to do that. I mean, your superintendent's down there answering the radios, so that doesn't happen in every district. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Please pass along our thanks to everybody.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Conti, is anybody signed up for open communication? All right. Thank you. Nobody signed up, so we'll move past open communication for tonight. And that moves us into our superintendent's report. Dr. Kozak did prepare his list of recommendations, so these are recommendations from him. And our consent, thank you. Our consent agenda for tonight is 7A, B, and C. Our agenda stuff's kind of new to us, so I learned, if you guys look down, there's a category for type, and then you'll see action, parentheses, consent. That's how you know it's part of the consent agenda or not. But it's 7A, B, and C. So take a look at that and let me know if anybody wants to move to accept.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Anderson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Carpenter. Anybody have anything they want to say? Okay. Mr. Liming, please call the roll on tonight's consent agenda.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson.
Yes.
The motion passes. It takes us to number 8, right? Out-of-state travel. Does somebody want to make a motion to approve out-of-state travel for the high school competition cheer squad to Disney Wide World of Sports in Florida, February 9th through the 13th of 2024, to participate in National High School Cheerleading Championships? The cost of the district includes 1 substitute teacher for 3 days.
So moved.
Mrs. Anderson
Second.
and Mr. Carpenter. Discussion. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes.
All right, did I miss anything? All right, number 9, items of discussion information. Mr. Conti is going to come up. Thank you very much, Henry. And let us take a look at the finalized document for the district goals. My understanding is none of the content changed at all. Everything is exactly as we approved, but it looks a little prettier now.
Yep, sorry, the walking and computing don't work for me. If I leave that in, I'll hear myself talk and go crazy. Apologize. Okay, so I don't have a whole bunch to say about it, just better looking design here. Canva is a wonderful, wonderful tool. I can only take so much credit. The portrait of a graduate, Mr. Handed, and we have our one pager for all of what our goals are and a brief synopsis of them. And then as we go down, and this is already on the website, has been for a little bit, but you see the leader, the overview, the committee, the action steps, of course. The anticipated cost to implement is kind of one of those things where it will be these things, but we didn't price them out because whatever they are today, these goals are over 4 years. We have no idea what that cost is going to be. And a lot of times it's, training of new administrators or substitute teachers, we have no idea if we're going to have any new administrators in those next few years. So hard to say what those costs would be. So that's some of those things, and that's really it. The administration worked with Dr. Kozad in formulating these and trying to come up with something as comprehensive as we could.
I love the layout. It's easy to read, easy to understand.
Canva is a wonderful tool. All I did was say, that looks fun. So, and I made it work.
Any questions? Thank you, sir. Thanks, appreciate it very much. Okay, our next report to the board, I'm going to give a little bit of an update on the active shooter response team. I do want to say that obviously security and safety can be a heavy topic. We don't have any little ones in the room here tonight, but if anyone's watching, I'm going to pause just for a second. We'll have Mr. Conti bring up some materials, but your choice at home if folks want to have children listen to this part or not. But tonight I'm going to talk a little bit and just kind of give an overview briefly about the training that all of our volunteers went through. Certainly I'm not going to go into every single detail. There's no way I could do it justice to really describe every minute of 40 hours of training. But I do want to provide kind of an overview. So I'm going to try to hit some of the highlights, information that the board may not have, and that way if you have any questions we can get into that. But also, community members have asked for a little bit more information, and certainly we want to be responsive to that. Anytime we can provide that information, we will, and appreciate people's patience. Things I know kind of move at the speed of monthly board meetings, so sorry about that. But kind of, again, just to set the stage a little bit, is that, over a year ago now, the board approved a motion to allow highly vetted and highly trained volunteers to not carry firearms, but instead to have access to very securely stored self-defense tools, just in case the need should ever arise. One of the stipulations of many that the board put in was 40 hours of training. The state was satisfied with 24 hours of training. That's what they set the law at, but we wanted to go above and beyond for obvious reasons. So 40 hours is similar to what a parole officer and several other folks have to go through in order to get their certification. So we thought 40 hours was about right. So Mr. Conti, if you don't mind kind of moving to the first slide there. Just kind of some key takeaways, or just to kind of to set the stage here. First and foremost, just making sure that everybody's aware that the training that was done, all 40 hours, very much school focused, very much firearm focused, very much what are the legal requirements, and then how to do that safely, how to do that best. It certainly wasn't just folks sitting around doing things that are not school related. And I think that'll become more clear as I move into a couple other slides. Everybody stressed at all levels, all of the instructors, that any overall safety plan is got to be balanced. There has to be many, many layers to include mental health resources, physical building security. If anybody wants more information on the, 35 different initiatives where we're going with our many, many layers, Mr. Conti's put together an excellent resource with all that information. You can go check it out because we're really, really checking those boxes well. We actually, by name, got a call out in one of the training where they specifically said, there are multiple school personnel there from different schools. And they said, hey, we understand Bellbrook's here, and you guys are really doing a good job with the door locks and the visitor management system and the mental health resources and the Hope Squad and the crisis intervention training and on and on and on. So that was really cool to see. And then all of the training, and especially one instructor in particular, really focused that, as you have this multi-layered balanced plan of all these things that absolutely need to prioritize prevention, is that one of those layers, God forbid the worst should happen, two things matter and only two things, time and math. Everything all about this comes down to time and math. We had hours and hours of discussion and really excellent public input, expert testimonies in previous meetings if you want to go back and see some of that stuff. But for time, if it hasn't been said before, really all of this training for these folks, the goal is to try to stop an event, to stop a threat in less than a minute and a half. That's kind of the mindset for everything about this. In regards to math, the plan, it has to be evidence-based, and that kind of leads to the graphic I have here. This is one slide from one of the instructors, and this is just a snippet. But he, in that class, went over, a dozen case studies and really went into detail about events that had happened all the way back over the last 40 years, and lessons learned, and successes, and failures. And I think that was really amazing that he was able to walk through that, show what works, what doesn't, how to go forward. So that's good. All right, next slide. One of the classes in particular, I put this up and I took this right up off their website so everybody can go look for yourself and research it more. One of the classes is the Armed School Staff Essential Training, the ASSET program. And that's been put together through the Ohio School Safety Center, which is part of the Ohio Department of Public Safety. And they truly built this course ground up for school personnel. That's what it's for. That's the people who take it. That's what all this curriculum is for. And the folks who put it together were military, law enforcement, or special forces. It really, really did a nice job. So I'm just going to kind of hit some highlights here. These are some of the topics. These are things that's covered really in all the different trainings, but particularly here in ASSET. Mitigation techniques, communication capabilities and techniques. So communication not only within a school during an event, but how about communication with first responders? They went into detail. There was a lot of conversation and a lot of best practices in regards to communication with law enforcement. Is how are you identified? When law enforcement is arriving, probably much, much later, because remember the goal for this is to end everything in a minute and a half. So when they show up at minute 7 to 15, how are you being identified? A lot of time, as you might imagine, fundamentals of marksmanship, tactical live fire, response tactics, realistic urban training, threat neutralization. The big key here that really they worked everything around is two things: safety and accuracy. Everything was safety was hammered hard, hammered often. That was always priority number one. And compared to maybe some other different trainings, because military is military, law enforcement's law enforcement, for this kind of a curriculum specifically for schools, accuracy was paramount. Much more important to be accurate than it is to be fast. So everything that they did when it came to movement, going down hallways, teaching people how to approach doorways, teaching people how to enter rooms, everything was with the emphasis on accuracy and safety above anything else. Next slide. Again, these are just topics that were covered in the ASSET class. Accountability, this includes all the legal considerations. It's very, very clear, and it's explained very clearly about when and how in regards to the law and Ohio Revised Code. A lot of talk about reunification plans, and I know that our safety team not the ASRT, but the overall school safety team has a lot of work into that. Psychology of critical incidents, including, pre and after care, God forbid an event should happen. That's something I know our implementation committee folks have talked a lot about, is making sure that there's support for the volunteers after an event also. Moving on, de-escalation, crisis intervention, trauma, first aid care. There was some training on tourniquets and things like that, which can be extremely helpful. And history, patterns of school shootings. There was a lot of scenario-based training. So all of the courses, every single one of them, had a mix of classroom time and range time. A lot of time on scenario-based training. You can imagine they'd set up targets in a safe area to really cause critical thinking and good decision making to happen. That was excellent training. So there were targets that, of course, included the deadly threat, but also innocents, law enforcement officers that may be in the scene. You have to discern and make good choices how to move, but obviously the focus on all of that was safety and accuracy. And then just to note here, everybody for this class had to pass a written test, which you had to have a perfect score on, 100%, as well as a live fire qualification test, which everybody had to pass at 80%, and all of our folks did that extremely easily. So that's kind of all I have. I mean, I'll give a shout out and a big thank you to our implementation committee. It's so awesome to have the input and the thoughts from both of our chiefs of police in the city and the township, and the support, as we've heard from the city and the township, from the trustees and the councilmen, and Mr. Han and Mrs. Sigmund for their involvement and their awesome input into that. But anybody have any questions just in regards to the training?
I guess I was a little puzzled, because we heard multiple times from speakers came out and there's a lot of questions, and I guess I should say criticism about not being more forthcoming with training, but this was readily available to anybody, right? I mean, this is the asset training syllabus you just had. That's something you can get from the.
Yeah, I don't know if we made public before that we were doing the asset training.
Okay.
There's other programs out there, just in case people, and we didn't do this one, if people are curious, you can go to fastersaveslives.org. Okay. That's a group that's, again, they've been doing school training for 16 years. Okay. But I don't think people knew we were doing asset. Okay. It's just things were in flux and in flight. And this was the time to give the update.
Okay. So that's 24 hours, correct? That
yes.
Was, the additional 8 or 16 we're requiring, it can be made up of various things. One's that just even the concealed carry, correct? Which is 8 additional hours.
Yeah, well, and that was included kind of in, I was touching on in the first, like that slide that I showed at the very beginning was from one of those classes. That was not part of the asset class.
Yeah.
Right. Would there be a problem in sharing your presentation publicly?
Putting
it on.
I don't have a problem.
Because that's the first time I've seen it. It would be nice to have it.
I don't have a problem with that. I probably would have put more context in. That's totally fine by me.
Right, just so people can.
Yeah, that's fine. I would say maybe if we do
out.
that, it might be good to point and say, hey, here's a link to, because there's a lot more information.
Right.
And
I
a
don't
lot
want to put any
more.
more work on you, but I think that is hugely valuable to have out there for our community to read.
Yeah.
Because then we've done our due diligence to say,
right.
This is what we're doing. There's no secrets.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's great. I'm just saying, because I took screenshots
right.
of the asset
right.
from the Ohio Department of Public
just
Safety, that would be the most complete place to find that. Sure. So if we put this up, that'd be totally cool. We could put a little, hey, you can find more information and not just these screenshots. Here is all the information.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Thank you.
I know one of the other things we had heard was, in fact, it was actually in the Xenia Gazette, the newspaper, the Xenia Gazette. It was actually false information, inaccurate information. It said that the district had no liability insurance or coverage, either for the volunteers or the school itself. And that's factually inaccurate. There very much is liability insurance in place, and it exceeds any that we're aware of for anywhere in the district here. So, and further, one of the other criticisms or assumed criticisms or facts was inaccurate. It added 0 to our insurance for the school system. So it costs us nothing extra, and it exceeds anybody in the surrounding region that has an ASRT-like thing. And so it's just bothersome to see a factual statement being made in a local newspaper that was completely inaccurate. Or sorry, a statement being made as though it was factual, and it was completely inaccurate. So rather than assuming a statement as fact, it would have been good for due diligence to be done with inquiries to see if, and public records requests and such. Those kind of questions can be answered. That's not going to reveal how we would protect our children or volunteers or anything like that. So those, just like the outline tonight of the training, that's not revealing anything or jeopardize any level of safety or protection, and hence the question over insurance. So again, it would be nice if people, before they make accusations and conclusions, if they had just done a little bit of homework to see really what the state that was. So bottom line is, we're paying no extra for having an ASRT, and yes, we have liability insurance in place.
Anything else? Okay, our next item of information is we all got a copy. I assume it's in the public portion too. Anybody can, okay, so anybody can log on to the new board docs. And by the way, give us feedback if you're liking that. It's not so much even for our benefit, it's straight up for the community's benefit. I find it to be more cumbersome, but that's not why it's there. I'm the one who gets lost, but that's for the community's benefit. We're doing it for you. Let us know if you like it and what your feedback is. Sorry, the item is the 2024 meeting calendar draft for the school board. So I don't know if we need any discussion on it, but just know that that's out there. You can take a look at it. It seems pretty standard.
Yeah, gets officially approved next month and then affirmed in January.
So just something to look at in case you have any feedback. Get that to Dr. Kozad individually. Okay. Last thing I want to mention is that obviously we had an election this past week. I want to take a minute and thank all 4 of the candidates. This is not an easy gig, so anybody who would be willing to offer their time and services and energy to the schools is amazing. But I'd like to congratulate Dr. Pryor and Mr. Price for your election. And I think I can speak for everybody and say we very much look forward to working with you. Anything else anybody wants to share?
Real quickly, that was at the last meeting, there was a report from the various subcommittees, and one of which I'm on the safety committee, and I didn't have anything to report because we didn't meet until last Friday. So just a couple things here. Commission can help me on this anything here, but some stuff we can't reveal because it's protected information. But one of the interests or concerns I would say is that we have full-time SROs in our district. Keep in mind that until this year, we had 1 SRO for 4 hours split between 2 schools. Now we have some number of SROs that are full-time. And we're looking to add another. And the limitation at this point, it's not us. It is apparently the Sugar Creek Township is having trouble finding suitable applicants. And so apparently it's a nationwide problem, just like it's been with bus drivers and people at the restaurant. So it's just like, where did they all go? We don't know. But yeah, so my understanding is that the township is committed with public statements that they were going to support an SRO, additional SRO for us. And we will split half that cost with them. But it's contingent upon them, of course, finding suitable applicants. And so hopefully that will happen sooner rather than later. I'd love to see it happen this school year. But that's my Christmas wish. The other thing, there was just some discussion, I won't go into detail about it, other than to say broadly about potential further hardening of our schools to protect from an intrusion. And I think we need to have an executive session about that to get into some details. And potentially at the next meeting, it can be a pretty quick discussion, but it's just a level of detail that we would need to go into. I don't really want to cover that in public. And so we have a executive session, trying to think when we'll be at the next meeting. I think I am. So as you know, the information we talked about as far as estimates. So if you could come with that, have a discussion on that. So, Mr. Ann as well, you had some ideas. So there's some expense associated with that. It could be somewhat substantial expense, but I think we really need to consider it, especially if you go watch the video, the Nashville shooting. So, just next meeting. Okay.
We'll take a look.
I just wanted to take a second and commend Mr. Phelps and Mr. Anderson. They put on a Veterans Celebration State UCI that was outstanding. So I just thank you for teaching the next generation to value our vets. It is something that is very moving to me. It's one of my favorite things to attend. So thank you, and pass it along to Mr. Anderson and their fifth grade team. They were outstanding.
Mr. Phelps, as a veteran, I really appreciated your words. I listened very closely, and I really deeply appreciated it. So thank you.
We're proud to do it.
Anything else?
Our marching band is competing at Band Nationals, Grand Nationals in Indianapolis, starting
Tomorrow
tomorrow.
night at 5:30.
Yeah.
So is that correct, Mr. Gibbons? Yes, tomorrow night at 5:30.
Okay.
Amazing show. We went to the command performance. It was so fun.
Yeah.
Such a great.
It's exciting seeing them getting back to where they once were on the national level. So that's great. I'm very proud of them.
A lot of hard work goes into it.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's it for me.
All right. Well, at this time, then, I am making a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Yes.
I heard Mr. Carpenter second.
Everybody jump.
Mr. Lyman, please call the roll.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey.
Yes, we are adjourned at 8:22. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you all.